We gotta start, man.
Oh,
Jeez, you're between me and food. What are you doing? That's a dangerous place to be.
I'm reading the Bible. Welcome.
Yes, what he said. Welcome to, where are we? Painted, what is it? You don't remember?
Hippo?
No.
Was it?
Painted Rhino
Rhino,
Podcast. I
Rhino.
can't believe you don't remember our only. This is like episode 932 or not, and you don't even remember. Man. So, hi guys. What'd you do today?
What did I do today?
It's enough about you. Let's talk about me.
Okay. Okay, that was great.
So, no, just kidding. I went fishing.
Today? Wow.
Yeah. Well, just for like 3 hours. Didn't have a lot of time, but it's decent, right? I just ran to a little city park and caught some bass.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. I caught a bass. I missed 4.
Was it with the plastic worm?
A sticko, but yes, that's So here's what happened, right? So I catch the first one. Cool. Little guy, not super little, 3/4 pound, 1 pounders, little, just enough to have fun. Right? Then go right back to the same hole. I'm like, that's where I hit it. Let's try it again. Right? I get a strike.
Oh no.
Right? And I'm watching and I see my line starting to curve, because you're dropping. And when you're dropping, you're letting the line fall back down and you see it starting to curve off. It's like, why is it going crooked? What's wrong with my line? Because I'm new with plastics, right? Because I've always been a live bait. So I'm giving it a shot. I'm learning. I'm enjoying it. It's different. Watching this and it's going. So it's like, okay, what do I do with this? Because I know I got a fish on there. And I'm waiting and I wait and I set the hook. And I set it again and I set it again.
Oh, you weren't going to miss that.
I'm not missing this thing, right? So the first one was perfect. Set it right through the nose. It was great. This fish, I know I stuck it. Not missing this thing. And I start bringing it in and it's heavy.
Oh, man.
And when I say it's heavy. I mean, it's not like I just pulled in a little 1 pound bass and now I'm pulling in a cinder block out of the creek or something. This was
thinking
heavy.
I got a big one?
I'm like, oh my gosh. And I couldn't get it to come to the surface. It was that big that it was holding the bottom. I couldn't get it up, right? Well, I knew with this challenge as far as drag and that kind of thing. So it wasn't great with my drag. I didn't adjust it. I'm just fighting it, right? Now the water in this pond has got about that deep of this green film stuff, so you can't see through it. So I can't even see what it is I've got on the other end of the line, right? I know it's a bass because of where I put it. I know what it was.
Alligator?
Right? No, this is Oklahoma. There's only a few of those. So I'm pulling, and I get it about 30 yards out. I get it up to about 5 yards. I mean, we're close. I'm like, okay, I'm about to pull this thing up on the bank. And it still hadn't come to the surface. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is just fighting. And I'm going and I've got it. And then my line broke. Now, 8 pound test, on a spinning reel, should have been enough for a pond bass.
Sure.
No. It sprung it just ding. I mean, here comes a line, no bait, no hook, no nothing, because he snapped it. Now, I don't know if he got under a stick or hit a root or if he was just like, yeah, I'm done with this and took off and killed it. But you know what I did next? I'm frantically grabbing another hook and tying it on, and I'm grabbing another sticko, BassPro Shop. We're going to talk about that here in a minute.
Okay.
So I'm putting it on and I get it right back in the same spot. I'm like, I know he's not going to be back there, right? Because he's running around chewing on my plastic worm. And the very next cast, boom, there he goes again. I'm like, okay, set the hook. Like, I got it, right? So I'm set. And I'm fighting this one. And it's a good one. And it comes up, right?
Oh, no.
And I've got it. And it starts dashing across. So it's going across me Well, man, I'm going,
Can you see it?
yeah, it's just under the water. So Finn, right? So he's going, and then all of a sudden, zippy, same thing. But it wasn't because he was so big. It's because I got in a rush and I tied that knot wrong.
Oh.
And you can see the end of your line where you have it all crinkled up.
Yes.
Where it just unraveled. My hook was gone. The fish was gone. I'm like, no. So I'm like, okay, stop. I'm into the fish. I found them. I don't want to lose out. So I'm going to take my time, do this right, tie it on the hook, got it right. Sweet. Right back to the same spot. Nothing. Go back to the same spot, get a hit. Fighting this one, and he's up, right, on the right of me. So I've got him here, and then he goes under, and I'm waiting, and it's so murky and green and gross. You can't see where he's at. And all of a sudden, he jumps up over here, and he gets, I'm telling you, the fish flies up in the air. He starts swinging around. I'm like, oh, this is like on the movies. It's like I'm Jimmy Houston, you know?
Yeah.
I am Roland Martin. Shush. Right? So I'm like, yeah. And he looks at me, and I'm telling you, I've never seen a largemouth bass smile before. But that sucker smiled, and he said,
Bye-bye.
and spit that hook out. Back in the water he went. He was gone. It's like, are you kidding me? I'm so done. No, but you can't quit because they're hitting. So, go right back to it. So anyway, throughout the 3-hour stretch, right, I missed 4, those 3 in a row, right? And I landed one. It was good. We'll have a picture of it. It wasn't great. Just a little guy, but it was fun. So I'm trying to learn. And this is what I came up with, right? So I've always fished, right, with spinning reel, no big deal. I'm used to that. But with spinner baits for bass, I've always used spinner bait. I've never used plastics. Never, ever, ever used plastics. So, we talked to the guy at Bass Pro. He went out of his way to kind of give us like this 30-minute tutorial thing. It was awesome. I'm like, seriously? He walked us over to the bait and to the, to our slip weight and to the hooks we need, the whole 9 yards. So showed us everything. It was like, that's awesome. Showed us, all the way through it. Put free line on the reel because we bought the rod and reel kit. She got one, I got one, same thing, right? We flipped hers for left-handed because she's left-handed, so I can tell them apart, right?
Wow.
But it is the Bass Pro 7-foot bass rod with spinning reel. It says right there on it, Bass Pro. I was anything but a pro today. But it says Bass Pro. I should be the pro at this. I have the pro equipment. Pro is for professional. Why did I not? I missed. How did I miss? Super frustrated, right? But I got to thinking about some of the stuff we were talking about and where we're going tonight with our conversation. And it kind of stuck with me. It was like, okay, Bass Pro. So I'm going to bring that back. If I was Jimmy Houston or Roland Martin or Bill Dance, one of the old boys, right? Now, I don't even know the new bass fisher guys' names. I don't know all the rock stars on the tour. I don't know all of that. I don't know. Don't really care. They can teach me something cool. If you're not on YouTube, I ain't gonna learn it because that's where I'm looking, right? So I'm trying to get better. So I didn't go to Walmart and get Shakespeare. They named the rod and reel Shakespeare. What am I gonna talk to him to death?
You're gonna talk them onto the shore,
right?
Okay.
Oh,
fishies,
where art thou? Right? Like, no, you can't know. How does that work? So, yeah. So I went with where it said pro, Bass Pro. But in my hands, it wasn't so pro. It wasn't. I will say this. Because of Roland Martin, I have switched to Stickos which are the same as the Cinco's, but it's the Bass Pro version instead of the Yamamoto. So it's cheaper. Same thing. Just as good. These other guys, Guggen and stuff, not so much. But
so you have
these are, yes. And I mean, you pull them out and the salt is there, the same. You feed it the right way, put it on their Texas rig, drops that, and it just flutters down like it's supposed to. Oh, it's awesome. It's great, right? So you got to go fishing with me. You got to get your license off. You illegal immigrant guy stealing fish. You're taking them to your family because you're starving. What are you doing? Now, he hasn't gone fishing because he doesn't have a license.
Well, the last time
we sank a boat.
Yeah.
I know. And I don't have a boat right now, but we'll get one.
We've been fishing since then, haven't we?
I don't think we have.
I think that traumatized us.
So it would certainly traumatize me. So it was pretty scary. It was fun. So anyway, all of that story to get us into talking about a story that's in the Bible in all the Gospels.
Okay.
And in John, we read about Jesus feeding the 5,000, right? So we talked about this last week in our small group.
Right.
What is it that we kind of crossed over that was different for us?
Well, you brought out a great point that it went from Jesus' hands. He blessed it, gave it to the disciples, and it multiplied from the disciples' hands because Christ was working through them, which I thought was...
Isn't that crazy?
And I never noticed that before.
Yeah, me too.
And it was like the disciples took it and fed
and passed it out. Jesus blessed it, broke it, gave it to the disciples, and as they disseminated it, as they did the work, it fed 5,000
men.
Right. Who knows how many actually were there because they didn't count the women and children.
Right.
So it made me think about the fact that I don't want dead air. Sorry for that pause. I'm trying to come back to the right way to say this. Let me do it this way. I saw an interview with T.D. Jakes.
Okay.
Right? And he was talking, I believe he was talking actually to Steve Harvey at this point. But anyway, he was talking, he said, I tell people that God doesn't make tables and chairs. God makes trees.
Oh.
It's like, no, wait a minute. And he goes on to talk about it and explain it a good bit. But the fact that God puts in our life already what we need to do the work of ministry, to change a life, to impact someone, to create the table. He said, God makes the tree, but the closer you get to God, the more you can see a table in that tree. Because he wants you to make a table from that tree. He's not going to just give everything to you. You've got to do the work, right? So help me out. And this is a challenge for anybody who may want to comment and help with this, because I really, really do want help with this. Examples, I need examples of when God worked, but he had someone else doing the work of the ministry. God gave a miracle, but there was some vehicle, some person that expanded that was worked through to make that happen, that made it happen. The disciples passed out the food, and it kept going, and it just kept going, and it just kept going. And in the end, the disciples gathered it up until there were 12 baskets, 12 being the number of completion. It was finished, it was done, it was complete. He had taken care of everything so that nothing would be lost. So what other examples of Jesus' miracles were done through the disciples? Do you remember?
Oh, man. Not off the top of my head.
I know. I threw this right at you. I did not prepare you at all for this.
Well, I know when he sent out the 12 and their first ministry trip. You know, they were
Yeah,
pumped on the fact that they were able to touch people and they were healed, or they
right.
were able to do all these signs and wonders.
Cast out demons. And by the way, just as an aside, because we're not going to talk about this, but it's going to make you go, what? You know who was part of that 12?
I got you.
Judas was right there.
Oh.
God can use anybody. Anybody.
Anybody, anything.
Anywhere. They don't have to be. And you can say that Judas he hadn't fallen at that point, or he hadn't rejected Christ, or hadn't betrayed him yet, and so he was good then. No, because you go way back, and it tells us that one of which was Judas, who would betray him, and Jesus knew it.
Oh.
Way back. When he called him to be a disciple, he knew, but he used him in ministry to change someone's life was bettered because Jesus used a sinner. So how special am I if he uses me?
That's humbling.
Isn't it?
It's not about me, is it?
It's not about me.
Oh, man.
It's crazy. So my challenge for you guys, come up with think about the miracles of God. Think about the miracles of Christ. Think about how he did things. And how many times can you come up with where he used someone else to do the miracle? Of course, he's getting the praise because he should. But almost every time there is something required of someone to make this happen. I'm going to give you a couple of easy ones. Okay. Take up your bed and walk. What if the man just laid there and said, I can't, I've never been able to walk?
He would still be there today.
Wouldn't he?
Would still be on the porch.
Go tell the chief priests, go tell them that you're healed. Go show yourselves, lepers.
And it says as they
went.
Yes, that's
right. Yes. Just start going through them all. Start going through them all, right? Okay?
That's good.
First miracle. What was it? Do you remember? What was the first miracle?
To wine.
Yeah, and what happened?
They had to go fill the pots.
Someone else, he said, go fill these pots and bring them here. There was something that needed done by impure hands to have a pure result come to pass. Right?
Wow.
Yeah. So Roland Martin, I'm loving watching his YouTube stuff. By the way, he's still doing it. He's 80-something years old, and he's walking himself out to ponds fishing and filming himself. It's nuts. It's fantastic. Thank God for it, because it's so cool to watch somebody that is still that full of life and loving what's happening. Because he's standing there fishing, but he's just showing, let me show you how to do this. We're going to do the frog. I love the frog. Let's show you the frog. So he's tells you what kind of frog, the whole thing, right? And I have that frog. Yes, I went and bought it. I haven't caught anything yet. Never had a frog catch, but I just started. I've only thrown it a couple of times. But he's standing there and he's telling you, and he said, "Wait, I got a bite." He stops teaching because he's got a bite. It's like a 5-year-old with a bobber and a perch.
And he's been doing it 100 years.
Exactly. And he's like, "Oh, I got one, baby. I got one. Yeah, that's one. I got one." He's so excited. He brings it in and he's like, "Oh, maybe there's another one in that hole." And he was doing a training thing on how to set up, your Cinco, with this worm bait and how to do it. And he stops all the teaching because I got fish going on, man. I'm catching fish. He's a pro, but he gets excited about it. He's still passionate about it. And that's what's got me watching his YouTube stuff, right? Now, I love the other guys. Don't think I don't. But you don't see that fire going on,
it's who he is.
That's it. That's it. But you know what? He comes and he talks about the Yamamoto and the Cinco, and he loves them, right? Loves them. And he talks about how BassPro Sticko is as close as you're going to get to it, and it works just as great. I mean, head to head, he's tested them. They come out the same. He's talking all about it because he still loves all those things, and it's the bait, and it's the rod and the reel, and it's the boat, or it's where he is, but it doesn't matter. It's the master that sets that hook that lands the fish. But he can't set that hook without that bait, right? He can throw another bait out there that's not designed to catch what it's supposed to catch. He's not going to do any good. How many times do we see people doing ministry, doing good things? Oh, they're out trying to do this, they're trying to do that. Nothing's coming from it. No growth. The church is stale. Everybody's about themselves. Nothing's coming through fruition from it. There is no fruit from the ministry. Does that mean they shouldn't be trying to help? No. What does it mean?
Wow.
What does it mean? It means Jesus didn't say, go hand out that bread to those people. Maybe those people were supposed to fill the water pots. But because it's so attractive to hand out that bread, I want to.
Got you.
You see where I'm going?
It's like churches taking another successful church who's doing what God has called them to do and copycatting it.
Yes. Now, to quote someone who in the 90s was a huge name in, church growth and seeker sensitive everything, Rick Warren, right? Purpose-driven life, purpose-driven church. Even his youth pastor wrote purpose-driven youth ministry stuff, Everybody jumped on the purpose-driven bandwagon, right? I love what he said, because he's telling you, don't copy me. Don't do this in your place if it's not for your place. But he did say, if my bullet fits your gun, shoot it. But your gun is different from his.
Got it.
Right? So I don't know what your local church is called to do, but I do know that if you do what God is blessing, growth will come from it, in the fact that people are getting saved, finding Jesus, and their lives are being changed. Right? I also know that if you're doing something because you want to do something, but you're asking God to bless what you're doing instead of doing what God is blessing, you're not going to have growth from it. People aren't going to find Jesus because you're not going to be reaching them with it. It's going to be stale. It's not going to be effective. Now, his word never comes back void, right? So you're going to see something from it. But how many churches have you been to where you see them not doing anything because they tried what the big churches do and it didn't work?
They get discouraged. And
yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know about you, but when you first get into the ministry and you're preaching, how when you try to preach like your favorite preacher, and it never works. It comes across as insincere and it's not as effective. And it's just like, well, I'll never be a T.D. Jakes or a Stephen Furtick or Craig Groeschel or...
You ready?
Go for it.
In the Church of God movement out of Anderson, many people my age or older will have heard of a man named Horace Shepherd. Horace Shepherd was amazing. He was a great little man, fantastic guy. I loved... He preached with a hanky in his hand because his bald head just sweat like a son of a gun, man. Just rubbing it down and going. And he was a fireball preacher. Just a powerful guy, right? Songwriter, musician, pianist. I mean, he just had the package. Well, his son followed him in ministry at his church. And I don't mean to cast light on it, but one time Horace was preaching and he got so excited, he got so wound up, and the Spirit got a hold of him that he jumped off the platform over the altar and down onto the floor. God just hit him. He was going, And if you know Horace Shepherd, you realize that this was genuine passion for what he was doing. It was not look at me and right this he was going. But his son wanted to be like his father, and his son is a great preacher in his own right, a great minister in his own right. But dad jumped over the altar one time. So Horace Sr. is traveling somewhere speaking, and Junior decides to go jump off the stage over the altar.
Oh no.
Breaks his leg while preaching. Maybe I shouldn't have said their names, but he was patterning himself after something that wasn't of him, and God didn't have it for him. So from the disciples' example, we see that some passed out bread. And look what happened. We see that some got to sit at the Mount of Transfiguration and witness what had happened there. Some spoke and devils came out of them. Right? They cast out demons. Some healed with the touch of their hand in Jesus' name. And all of them struck out from time to time. One account where they were trying to cast out a demon and couldn't do it. Right? Right? So this scripture and this image of him using us. Okay, so my fishing rod says Bass Pro. Right?
Okay.
And I promise you, I have zero doubt that if Roland Martin had my rod today, he would have had all 5 fish on the bank, not 1, but 5. Right? And he would have been excited about it, and there would have been passion, because he would have taken the tools that I had, that are professional grade tools, and added the blessing of the professional.
Wow.
We are called to go do things. It drives me nuts. We were in a business meeting not too long ago at a different church than where we go now, not the church we attend now. And I looked at the budget, and they literally spent more money on office supplies than they did community outreach. Pull the numbers. Blew my mind. Blew my mind. What is the outreach? What are we doing? What are we doing? And then you have places that find what God needs them to do where they are, and they do it. Those are the places where people's lives are being changed physically, and they're finding Jesus. I think of, and I haven't asked him, I'm going to try. I don't know if we can get it done, but we're going to try to get it done. Tom Dillingham, Common Ground Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Planted a church, right? The whole coffee shop vibe in mind, going from ground zero, right? That church, which is still it's in a shopping center. They bought part of a shopping center in Tulsa that had a movie theater, and it converted it to their sanctuary, their auditorium, and then rebuilt around it with all the kids stuff, everything, made it into the church right there in the middle of the community, right? They didn't go find some fancy building out on a piece of land on the edge of town and make people come to them. They went to where the need was, planted the church, stayed there and grew. Every week, twice a week, they feed through groceries, through a food ministry. You ready? 380 to 400 families twice a week in Tulsa. Man, you know how that started? A couple in the church came to the pastor and said, hey, we want to start doing a food ministry. Okay.
From the gifts
Let's
from
go.
within.
From the gifts from within, from the tree they were planted with. They made a table. Right? And Jesus said, feed my sheep. And they're doing it literally.
That's not a big deal until you've ever been hungry.
Oh, man. If you've never had money for groceries, and then somebody says, hey, why don't you come over here tonight? We're going to take care of you. Now, they don't just pass it out to anybody all willy-nilly either.
Right.
You know, you have to go through their channels. because they don't want to just give it to people that don't need it, right? They're careful. And they do it in a way that the gospel is told with it. It's not just here's food, go away. It's come be a part of our family, hear about Jesus, know about Jesus. This is why we do this. He loves you. Boom. And people's lives are changed left and right because their needs being met, because they're using their gift in their church, in their community to do what they need to do what Jesus asked them to.
What their community needs.
That's it.
Oh man, that's good.
But if your church is always sitting on their hands and let's have a, potluck and we'll do Sunday school and take care of ourselves, but we're not going to go try to find anything. Or if there's nobody there that even has that vision, without vision, the people will perish. Right?
That's so good. I do that on a personal level too. We try and copycat people, and I've done it 50 million times with my tennis game. Try and play. I play. By the way, the name of my tennis racket is called an Aero Pro.
Aero Pro. There you go.
It's Rafael Nadal's racket, and I am far from it. Matter of fact, I hurt my knee today.
It happens. Man.
But that is such good. I'm going to think on that all week. Personally, where am I planted? Where did God put me? I have a new job. How can God use me in that? What can I do? I don't know. I feel like we're part of a church right now that is doing that. Yes. Gangbusters globally.
Yeah.
And so I'm challenged really on a personal level.
We do it all the time because we see the best, we want to be the best, right? And, we do it at work. I manage a store that's in a group of 9 to 11 stores, that's in a region, that's in a company of over 1,000 stores. And the goal is to be the best, right? And to be the best, I look at who's winning and do what they did. But that doesn't always work. It doesn't always work because I have a different community. I have a different staff. I have a different focus. So it's not always going to work. So what I have to do and have had to do is, what do I need to do here to elevate our function, right? So what do I need to do here? So I don't go, and when I win, and we have had some good wins, I don't go before everyone and say, you have to do it this way. Because I don't know. I know what I needed to do in my place to win, and we won. Now, what do I need to do this month to win? It may be a little different. It may not be the same, because your calling is a calling to ministry, not a calling to occupation, not a calling to task, not a calling to specific something, right? So if you're convinced that I'm going to be this in my ministry and this is what we're going to do, and I have this vision to be this great whatever, and you keep using that, and that's what you're going to do, and that's what that's where you're going to make your bones and get popular or get famous or get big or make a difference, and you think it's great, but you're throwing you're throwing stink bait at bass. You're only going to catch catfish, because bass don't hit stink bait often, right? You're going to throw a rubber worm at a catfish? No, because they're not going to bite that. They like something that smells, it's rotten, it's gross, not something plastic, So you're throwing the wrong bait. You're not going to catch the fish you want. And if you're at a place that only has the fish you want and you keep throwing the wrong bait, you're never going to catch anything. If you have a ministry in your church and you call it a ministry and really it's an avenue to show that you're doing something and nothing has come of it and nothing has come of it and nothing has come of it, let's think about what we're doing. Let's stop and look at the tree and see, does he want a table or does he want a chair? Maybe I should change because my community needs this. And in all of it, it's our hands that he blesses. By watching YouTube, by getting the right bait, by getting the right gear, I'm actually catching bass on plastics. Never knew how before, but I'm doing it. And I'm catching good fish. And I don't have to come home going, I caught 3 of those little perch today, or 30 of those little. I can catch perch with my eyes closed. But I wasn't catching bass until
It's
now.
not as fun.
Oh, man, it's a blast. It's so fun. So, with the fishing hat on today, I just wanted to challenge us to let him use our hands for the work of the ministry, but to look at the ministry we're choosing and make sure that it is what God made us to do here and now. Here and now.
Oh, that's so good. That's a lot of, man, I have a lot of questions. So if with the gifts that I have, because we try to so much try and want to be somebody else or try and do it like them, and I think that's one of the biggest deceptions of the devil, because he's taken the gift that God created us to be, because God wanted us to see the table. And I want to be it. Well, I want to make a chair like so and so, and then never, it just not work.
Yep. And what you don't want, you really don't want to make a chair. You want to make a throne because you want to be in control. Ouch.
Ouch.
Right? Man, I'm guilty. I am so guilty. When my wife said, you guys should make a podcast, I'm like, why? What are you talking about? I game, but I'm not that great a gamer. You know, I don't know what would we do? You know, I can't juggle. I can't, I don't have any gifts. But you know what?
But we do.
We may not have, a crowd the size of a state watching. But somebody here today is going to go back to their church. Please go back to your church and say to your leadership, we need to be doing something that this community needs. That's where our focus should be. So what do we need to do here? What does this town need? What does this neighborhood around us need? How many churches are destination churches where everybody drives to them because that's where the building is, but the community around them has never been in the doors, never been blessed by them, never had food given to them, never had the lawn of someone who can't mow their own lawn done, never had a car fixed by somebody who's in the church that's a mechanic, never had their plumbing fixed by a plumber that goes to the church and sees a need in the house in the community, never has reached and touched where they are. Jesus didn't say that, okay, I'm going to go over here and minister to them, right? But they have to actually come to me. I'm going to stay in the boat. I need them to come to me. He went from town to town. And what did he do in those towns? Some towns he taught in the synagogues. And some towns he cast out devils. In some towns he rebuked religious leaders. And in other towns he fed them. And in other towns he healed their sick. What was the need? That's what he met. He wasn't stuck in that box of, but this is our program. I don't want a program. I want a ministry.
Meet the need, huh?
That's it. Meet the need. Now, not as fun as last week, for sure, right? And I did a ton of talking. You like barely got to talk. I am so
No,
sorry.
that's so good.
I am so sorry.
My wheels are turning, and they will be all week.
So, yeah, mine too. Mine too, because I have to
Challenge.
look in the mirror and say, what am I doing that's making a difference? Because, yeah, okay, I'm serving on, a team that greets people at the door. What else? What other real need am I meeting in the people around me?
In the community.
What am I doing? And it's not enough. It's not enough. So I'm asking for your suggestions, your input of things that you saw Jesus do through other people. And it goes all the way back to the beginning of time. Lead my people out of Egypt. Why didn't he just do it? Right?
You could have.
To start this whole nation. Abraham, you're going to start this whole nation. Walk through this covenant with me. He was there to walk through the covenant with him. Literally walk through the covenant with him. So he could have done the rest of it. But he chose to do it through Abraham. He chose to save them through Moses. Right? Right? He chose to introduce Holy Spirit into our lives through Peter. Over and over and over again, he used us to do his miracle.
But I just want to pray and let it happen. I just want to pray and make it happen.
I'll slap you in the face.
Let's pray about it.
Yeah.
My dad told me, son, sometimes you got to get up off your knees. And now the older I get, the more I'm realizing I'm lazy sometimes.
It's awful easy to say, I'll pray for you. I'll pray about that. What does God want us to do as a church? Let me pray about that. Let's pray about that. We'll even call a fast, which nobody follows up to see, did we fast? No.
20 years go by and we'll still be praying.
Yeah. How often did Jesus pray for someone else? Now, I know he's Jesus, but everything he did within the power of the Holy Spirit through the Father who had sent him. So he laid down his authority to come here. Don't give me that. He was Jesus' thing. He prayed for Jerusalem, right? He prayed for the people around Lazarus' tomb. Did he pray for the Samaritan woman? No, he just met her need. What about the 10 lepers? Did he pray for them first? What about the guy who was blind? Did he pray before he put the mud on his eyes? What about the thief on the cross?
The woman with an issue of blood.
It goes on and on.
See, but he was, what if we could live in such communion?
There it is.
As, I love what you said, as they were on their way, they were healed. As they were, I don't know, that's a challenge, Is God not giving us a ministry or something to do or giving us gifts, or are we not seeing it?
Here's your last one. And we got to end here because I know we're going along and this may seem boring to a lot of people. I don't care. It's not about you. Ephesians 4, right? Right? You want to read it?
Let me do it?
Yeah, you can read it.
NIV?
Read it. No, read it the wrong way first. Yeah, read that New Living.
7? Ephesians 4, here. Chapter 7?
Read it right here.
Okay. Oh,
it's highlighted for you.
However, he has given each one of us a special gift through the generosity of Christ. That is why the scripture says, when he ascended to the heights, he led a crowd of captives and gave gifts to his people.
The Greek word, where it says special gift, the Greek word there is not gift. That's a bad interpretation. The Greek word there is grace.
Mm.
What does grace do?
What is grace? It's giving something we don't deserve. Favor, blessing, love. I mean,
So the doctrine of grace, what does that do to salvation? We go from legalism to grace. What does that do? It gives us what? It gives us
freedom.
Freedom.
Mm.
So he gave each of us freedom. Then it talks about spiritual gifts, right? And things that we are to do to spread the gospel, which is how you build the church. Is you make the church bigger by adding to the members daily those who are being saved, right? Right? It's not about making a bigger building. It's about making a bigger body. Okay? He gives us freedom to do those things that he has blessed us to do, right? That he wants us to do. Whatever your ministry is, if you're doing it with the freedom of Roland Martin at 82 years old catching a bass, then you're doing it with passion and enthusiasm, and it energizes you. How many Christian people, good, honest, God-loving, church-going Christian people say, I'm just tired of doing everything in the church. I'm tired. I need a break from ministry because I'm tired. No, you need a break from the tasks you're doing because you're not doing ministry, which invigorates and energizes you because it's done with freedom, not with responsibility and duty. Grace. Grace. We miss it. We do it because we have to, because nobody else is going to do it. Well, maybe God didn't want it done. Maybe that's a table and you're supposed to make a chair.
Have you heard this one? I went into the ministry kicking and screaming.
Yeah, well, I left singing and praising. So what do? You know, that's the whole thing. I didn't want to be a preacher. Don't lie to me. Don't you lie to me for 1 second. If you didn't want to, you wouldn't be there because you don't make any money at it. It's all you know. You need to do the ministry that he's given your hands to do. Pass out that bread. But you're not going to go pass out the bread begrudgingly. He's not going to ask you to make something you can't make of that tree. He's not going to ask you to catch bass with catfish bait. All these analogies rolling together to help you understand God has called you and given you a grace and a freedom to do what you're passionate about doing and use that as ministry for him. Don't ask him what your ministry is. Ask yourself, what does he give you that makes you excited and gives you energy? What infuses you with passion? Do that as ministry. How do you do it? I don't know. But there was a couple that wanted to feed people, wanted to help. And so what did they do? They built a food bank ministry at Common Ground. And what happened to it? It's exploded. And it's one of the biggest food banks and the food giving ministries in all of Tulsa. Why? They're not a huge, enormous church. They're a church of, 400 or 500 people. But they're changing people's lives because a couple was passionate about something and they used that passion in their ministry. We get it backwards. We say, God, somebody's got to teach these 8-year-olds. I'll teach them. I hate kids, but I'll teach them. I can't stand runny noses, but I'll teach them. They're loudmouth punks and their parents ought to be locked up, but I'll teach them. Right? And after 6 weeks of teaching them, I can't stand these kids. It's driving me crazy. I can't go to church this week. I need a break. Where'd the ministry go? That's not ministry. Do those kids come in and go, man, they love us so much? No, they go in and they don't want to be there either because you don't want to be there.
We do more damage.
Right? And you know what? There's there's an 18-year-old kid in that congregation that is passionate about children and loves Jesus and wants to teach so bad, but there's no opening because this old person that hates children has to do it. Get out of the way. Do what you're passionate about. And in that, let God use it for ministry. That's it.
And everybody will find their place.
Exactly. Work within the grace and the freedom of what He blessed you with. That thing that makes you go. Go for Him. Don't just go for you. Go for Him. You love working on cars? Maybe, just maybe, that's a ministry you can do in your church. Maybe you could show and teach young men how to do and be that. Maybe you can help, high school girls that are first driving their car learn how to change a tire if they're ever stuck on the side of the road by themselves. There's so many things you can do because you love to work on cars. It's a ministry. You love to fish. I enjoy going fishing. How about you take some of those kids that don't have dads that take them fishing? Take them fishing. How about you take your pastor out on your boat and let him have a day away from the phone, a day away from other people's needs, and just enjoy what God's given him and teach him how to do things, man. There's so many, anything you do, anything. You make quilts, make prayer quilts. You sew doll clothes, cool. You know what? We send dolls to children overseas that have nothing all the time. There's so many things you can do that you love doing, that you're doing for you. How about we start doing it for Him? What do I love doing? Talking. You can tell. I talk too much. Teaching. I love it. Looking at the Bible in a way maybe you've never looked at it before. Finding something that makes me go, oh man, I've got to change my whole worldview of my life because God showed me this. That's what I love. I love theology. I love it. Here I am. Finally, I may be working for a living doing something I don't love. But right now, this right here, I'm finally doing what I'm passionate about and free to do. And it's a ministry to someone else. That's awesome. So what's yours?
What's my passion? Well, number one, I like to, it's the whole, I love teaching also, and I get to do that in small groups, and I preach every once in a while. But it's also more of a encouraging, helping people, and I like digging into this may sound heretical, but the psychology, and try to understand where people are coming from and understand them, and why people do what they do, rather than just judge, look at shallow judgments and all of that. I like to go, what? Tell me about that. And I like to do it. Just that fuels me. I love the idea of, because Jesus he knew why people did what they did. He knew why the woman at the well was coming.
At the time of day she
was
came.
coming. I just got so many examples. I can go through the Gospels time after time of when Jesus, I think he dealt, sure, he spit the truth and told people truth, but he also helped them come to self-realization and understood why people do what they do. And so that's just a passion of mine, and to help Christians in the church understand that it's about, we have to have a relationship first. We don't get a right to be rude. And that's my passion. So you can tell I'm going on and on.
And that's what it is.
And I could.
That's why when I start going off on something theological, you don't get to talk. It's because I won't shut up, because I love it. So
and what am I doing the whole time? I'm sitting here going, oh man, yeah, because it's I love that about you, and I love that I can learn from that. So I'm sitting here. I told Adrian before the podcast tonight, I said, dude, you take it tonight, because he had talked to me at lunch. And I was like, I'm sitting here, you take it tonight and roll with your idea of this, that God gave us grace and we interpret it as gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And because that was revolutionary. It is revolutionary.
Oh, no, it just happened again. Because you see, we celebrate people's gifts, but I've never celebrated someone who needed grace. It's not about me. It's not about my gift. It's about the one that gives me grace. So he doesn't give us our gifts for us, right?
Don't believe the negative, and don't believe the hype.
That's it.
Either one.
That's it. What did Wesley call it? The via media. The middle way.
Middle way.
Always the middle way. Listen, guys, thank you for putting up with us this week. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that you're inspired to find what you're passionate about and begin thinking, what can you do to make a difference in your community with what you love to do already? Because that freedom is what he wants to minister out of. He wants you to bless people out of that freedom, just like he wants you to be a cheerful giver. Not give because you have to, give because you want to. And boy, I didn't even get into that, and I'm so glad, because that's a whole nother time. But
save it.
I'm saving it. I have to. We're out of time. But that's the whole thing tonight, guys. Thank you so much. Find what you're passionate about. Do what you love. And find a way to make it a ministry. And if you have a church that's in a community that isn't making an impact in your community, I challenge you, if you do what you're passionate about for ministry, watch, an impact will happen, and a whole new program of ministry may come out of it. Until then,
His grace is enough.